One and all, and welcome to West Province Sports and GT Masters Season 7, round number 3. Coming to you live from the Second Year Production Studios. Joining us, Mike Side, the man from Rage Productions, Go Starsy, and Oval Track Racing throughout South Africa. FC Niva, good evening to you.
Good evening, Gaza. Good evening, everybody at home. Lovely to be back in the Second Gear studio for another exciting round of the Sports and GT Master Series.
And then the voice of West Province Motorsport, man, that's going to be going live Sunday at Kalani International Raceway with the Motor Show. He'll be joining us in a couple of seconds from now. You can just say hi to us. Frankie, good evening to you.
Gaza and FC and Tiny from Tiny's Pit Box. Hello and welcome. We're going to have a great one this evening.
Yep, no doubt about it. So Zandfoort in the HDPs, the circuit park Zandfoort. And FC, you say this is one of the older versions of this actual circuit. The circuit starting out a long time back, in fact, in 1940, and hosting the Dutch Formula One Grand Prix from 1952 to 1985.
Yeah, well, the official opening of the circuit was in 1948 in August. So that's 74 years ago that the circuit's been up and running. And yeah, this layout that you see here is one of the slightly older versions, right up until just before we welcomed Formula One back last year. And the reason we know this is if you look at turn number 3, where today in Formula One you've got that awesome positive camber banked corner where Alonso was the first one to realize how quick that outside line through that corner is.
And
this one
missed the barrier doing it.
Yeah, and this circuit, the one that we are actually racing on this evening, does not have that bank corner at turn number 3.
Oh, here we go. There's the inside line, not the inside story on that one. Jaco Steyn out on circuit. Let's have a bit of a closer look at some of these liveries on the cars. Robbie Teens out there once again, and another one of the major success stories is getting quicker and quicker. Raymond Duggan also out on his sighting lap is Ian Riddle. Lovely paint job on that motor car. Be nice if we can pick up some of during the course of tonight. A nice close-up. Look at that. Oh, beautiful livery.
That's beautiful Audi colors on there, which is exciting news, seeing as how Audi announced their official partnership with Sauber from 2024, which they'll eventually then become the Audi Works team
in 2026.
Yeah,
that will be happening. Jan Spammer's out there as well, one of our super quick guys out there, Mr. Luke Easy, and he's running the red Ferrari colors as the first of the guys have done the opening lap. Robbie Teens, the man that initially gets himself up onto the top end of the grid. Peter Hubert, who was I don't want to give it all away, but he was the fastest man in qualifying. 126.514. Willem Botha had one good one, one bad one last week in round number 2 of season 7. Juan Ferrari bumps himself up onto the second row of the grid, and Swayze Hubert is in there as well. Coming late into the session was Graham Stephen. He finds himself 0.7 off. Luke Lucchesi gets up alongside Johan Ferrari. Then a little bit further back, we've got Sandro Bakari. He's done one flying lap so far, but 127.646 with Timothy Stanton rounding out that 4th row of the grid. Captain Peter van der Spey, he was out racing at Kalani on Saturday, and also had some good, some bad. But it's great to see him back out on circuit again. Raymond Duggan just outside of the top 10, and he finds himself in a 127.932 with Renier Hubert. And I'm pretty sure on the next time Renier Hubert comes around, I think you'll find he's going to bump it up a little bit further. Ati Nagel still busy with his second lap out there, only having done one lap so far. And I think there's quite a bit of room for improvement because he was a lot quicker than that in the practice. I don't think that opening lap went too well for him. Dr. Mike Berrier, the man that started off 7 seasons and a whole lot of COVID further back, the man out there in the 8-ball 24/7, and often you find Sajin properties on that car as well. Main circuit racer Johan Engelbrecht, he likes to ride horses, but this is it's a HDP, he'll take a turn with that one as well. Jaco Steyn gets himself up into that 18th position. But Frankie, Peter Hubert, once again, one of the quickies out there. Now, as Jaco Steyn said to us the other day when we were chatting off air, Jaco said, quote unquote, I'm quick in the slow cars, but I'm slow in the fast cars. Well, Peter Hubert is very quick in the fast cars.
Well, yeah, I guess every driver car combination it differs, and certain cars and certain circuits suit certain drivers as well. And that's what makes motorsport so interesting because you can be quick in a certain car on a specific circuit, and then a different car on a different track, then it doesn't quite work out for you that way. Luke Lucchesi sitting there in that fourth position with a 126.554. And then Willem Botha in car number 4 sitting out there in that fifth position with a 126.757. Almost 6 minutes done in the 10-minute session. As we have a look here at Graham Stephen, he's in P6 with a 126.768 so far, with 4 minutes left in this qualifying stint.
Well, Frankie, just before you mentioned Luke's name, I was going to bring him up and saying that, in the past seasons that we've had, 6 seasons to go, we've had people that absolutely dominated the racing. People like Luke, Johan Fourie, Francois Hubert. They're still up there. But after 7 seasons, we are now starting to see some of the other guys encroaching on those top positions. Somebody like Peter Hubert, who solidified that top position on a 126.321, 1/10 of a second ahead of one of some of the best racers we know out there, Johan Fourie, who's currently in that second position on a 126.429.
Yeah, last week was a bit of up and down. Jaco Steyn as well. The first race of last week, Wednesday, he brought that car home in P1, and then sadly in the second race made contact with Mike Verrier and went from 0 to 0 very quickly. But yeah, even he's busy working his way up the leaderboard compared to last week Wednesday. So we're looking at Rainier Hubert. He sits there in that 16th position with a 128.070, and he's 1.7 seconds behind provisional pole sitter Peter Hubert. That's out there on a 126.321.
Yeah, look, only 2.5 minutes left in this. Is anybody going to be able to catch Peter Hubert there? As you only get 2 laps to put up a time out here for qualifying. We see there Peter Hubert, Johan Fourie, Francois Hubert, all of them already done with their qualifying as they show the grey names. Lucchesi still out there. Mike Verrier parks it there on the main straight, heads back to the pits as some of the guys are still out there. Lucchesi, we still see him. His name highlighted there. We're riding on board there with Ati Nagel, who's trying to improve on that 128.162.
Yeah, his last lap was a 129, and that's Ian Riddle. That's all the way down in 21st position, followed there by Eugene Manouk in the 22nd position with a 131.004. Raymond Duggan sitting out there in the 071 car in that 13th position, the 127.685, and he's 1.3 seconds behind pole sitter Peter Hubert.
Jan Spalmer still out there as well. He's currently in that 10th position on a 127.284. That is 9/10 of a second off our pole time, but still a good time there from Jan Spalmer. Jan Spalmer improves, goes up to 7th on a 126.865 to put him into P7.
Yeah, it was in P10. He's moved up into that 7th position, as FC was saying there in the 003 or 003 car. As Ati Nagel, Ati Nagel all the way down in P18 with a 128.162 so far, 1.8 behind Peter Hubert, and that's not quite where Ati would want to find himself, but it comes back to the same old story. Different car track combinations suit certain drivers.
Well, Frankie, we've seen these Honda HPDs out on the circuit in previous seasons, and it has been an equalizer for some of the guys that are usually not around the top, and it does bring the midfield guys closer to the front as we basically head on to the end of this qualifying session. About 15 seconds left. I don't think anybody else is still out there on circuit trying to put up a time. So that pretty much looks like it's your grid for round number 3 of season number 7 for Sports and GT Master Series.
Yeah, the 10 minutes qualifying time is up. So that will be your grid, and it will be Peter Hubert and Johan Fourie that will lock out the front row, followed there by Francois Hubert and Luc Lucchesi, Graham Stephen, Willem Botha, Jan Spalmers and Swys Hubert, and row 5, Sandro Bakari and Peter van der Spey.
Right behind Peter van der Spey, you've got Robbie Teings, Timothy Stanton, then Raymond Duggan and Mike Verrier rounds off row number 7 with Atti Nagel, Herman Lazarus in that row number 8, Colin Plitt, Reinier Hubert brings home row number 9, followed by Jaco Steyn, Johan Engelbrecht, Ian Riddle, and Eugene Minuk brings up the tail end of the field.
11 rows and 22 cars out here for round 3 at the Zandfoort circuit here in the Netherlands, the home of our double world champion Max Verstappen, as these Honda HPDs are about to go off the line. We're waiting for Johan Engelbrecht in P20 to still grid, and we're not seeing him so far, FC, in that 99 car of his.
Looking ahead from Eugene Minuk at that empty pit grid box ahead of him, where Johan Engelbrecht is supposed to slot in car number 99. They basically lined up on the main straight at Zandvoort, heading into turn number 1, called Tarzan Corner. And interesting little story behind that. When the track was built out back in 1948, that little patch of land was basically the gardener for the circuit. That was his piece of land, and he had a vegetable patch there. And the track designer said, you know, give us the patch of land. He says, I'll give it to you on one condition. You name the corner after me, then you can have my little patch of land. And that is how turn number 1 came to be named Tarzan Corner.
Right, Engelbrecht is there. He does pop into that grid slot. The safety car is going to take them around the circuit Zandvoort here in the Netherlands. 22 iRacing Master Sports and GT drivers, as the Porsche Cup car leads these Hondas off the start line on the formation lap, and then pretty soon we'll be all systems go. Remember, we're doing 2 races this evening, a very short sprint race of 15 minutes, and then the feature race will be a half an hour long.
That is where, more or less, where Tarzan's vegetable patch would have been. That's turn number 1, Tarzan Corner. That'll take you down to turn number 2, which is a slight left-hander, and that'll take you up to corner number 3, which is basically that in the modern circuit would be that banked corner. Oh, sorry, there they go into turn number 2 now, and then heading towards turn number 3, which will be that left-hander U corner that is banked in the modern era of a Formula 1.
Yeah, working their way around. We look at that front right-hand side suspension in the Honda HPD of Timothy Stanton, as he works his way around. He's qualified in P11 in that number 3 car. The nose cam of Stanton. Ahead of him you see Sandra Bakari in the TDI sponsored Honda HPD, as they work their way around Zandvoort. Francois Hubert sitting there in that 3rd position, and you'll be keeping an eye there on Peter Hubert and on Johan Fourie, and you'll know that Luc Lucchesi is right there with him as well. So when the lights go green, it will be all systems go for a 15-minute short sprint race.
You've got Jaco Steyn and Atti Nagel and Raymond Duggan, who's all pretty fast flyers, who's out of position there in those positions where they find themselves on the grid. Is that strategic? Hang around there, the middle, towards the back end of the field during the sprint race, and then capitalize on it during the main race? We'll have to wait and see what they do, but we do know that all of these drivers would like to be higher up on the grid, as they're going to be chasing down Peter Hubert and Johan Fourie, Luc Lucchesi and Francois Hubert.
Right, we're looking back from Johan Fourie at Luc Lucchesi, and he's got Francois Hubert there on his right-hand side. There is Peter Hubert. Johan Fourie is going to drop the hammer shortly. Busy working their way around. We are heading towards the end of the lap now. They're going to have to box very nicely and very neatly. Remember that the 777 car is actually a car that's in pole position, and that is Peter Hubert. Johan Fourie is there in 2nd pole. Francois Hubert and Luc Lucchesi sit just behind the 2 of them, as these Honda HPD sports cars make their way around. This is a very tricky little right left-hander, and then they will head down towards Arielindai corner, which is the final corner at Zandvoort, and then it will be all systems go from there.
home of the Orange Army. Will we see any orange smoke out here today? We'll have to wait and see. Peter Hubert on that front row in as close as what we can get to an orange car. And right next to him, the black and green of Johan Fourie as they make their way through the final corner, and they'll make their way up towards the start-finish straight pretty soon.
Right, they're busy working their way now through the Ari Lyndike corner. The safety car will peel off into a pit lane, and then it will be in the hands of Peter Hubert, the man that's there in pole position, as the safety car moves out the way. And we are about to go green here for 15 minutes, and a lovely start off the line there by Peter Hubert. That's Johan Fourie right in there with him. There is Francois Hubert, and right behind him is Luc Lucchesi, and covering him there is Graham Stephen.
Graham Stephen had a good start there as well, but Peter Hubert was the man who flew off the line. Just look at the gap he's got there on Johan Fourie. Fourie sits there ahead of Francois Hubert. Lucchesi's in there with them. Then Graham Stephen, Willem Botha. Jan Sparmers has made a big mistake as he tumbles down the order. I see another car hitting the wall there. Oh, massive pile-up. Cars on its roof. And oh, is that Colin Plitt that was reversing there into somebody. There we go. Chaos all over the show here at the front of the field, or all over the show at this stage of the fight. Gary's going to have his hands full to try and get the best angles for those replays because it's going to be all over the show.
Yeah, Graham Stephen tumbling all the way down to that 19th position is Graham Stephen. But up front, it is Johan Fourie that sits out there in P1 with Francois Hubert in that second position, being chased down there by Luc Lucchesi. There's nothing between them. Then second behind Lucchesi is Willem Botha. And already you see that Fourie, Hubert and Lucchesi is trying to pull the pin there on Botha, with the Swais Hubert and Sandro Bakari right in there with them. And those 6 drivers is nearly 6 seconds ahead of the man in P7, namely Reinier Hubert.
Well, Peter Hubert must have been one of the guys that caused one of those pile-ups because he's tumbled all the way down to 10th from the lead of this race. And, just not having a good time out there. Luc Lucchesi's in trouble. He's in the pits, so he must have made contact with somebody somewhere along the line. And that's opened the door for Fourie and Francois Hubert to make their way up into those top 2 positions. Swais Hubert sits there in that 3rd position with Sandro Bakari finding himself in a very favorable 4th position.
Well, here we go with the replays. Jan Sparmers turned it around in the 003 car. And then there was just chaos in there behind him. Ian Riddle coming through as well. He was involved in that one, in that 18 car, as he tried to take evasive action. He got spat out to the right-hand side, and there was just drama after that. The FC Peter van der Spey also getting turned around in this chaos on the opening lap.
Yeah, he got tagged there from behind, but I think that was Robbie Teens possibly. Mike Verrier stuck in there behind them all. And then it was just a whole pile up there as everybody made contact with almost everybody coming out of that car. Mike Verrier gets turned around in the 8-pole car and gets dumped on its roof.
Yeah, he gets turned upside down there. Peter van der Spey just slammed there into that Omco barrier, and then clips another car coming through, then gets nailed as well there. Eugene Manouk, did he get involved in that, or did he do the right thing? Yes, he did the right thing, just slowed all the way down, watched the chaos, and then makes contact with the 6 car that was just there ahead of him.
Yeah, well, that wasn't his fault. That was a car that was Van der Spey that just reversed it.
Yep.
There's what happened to Peter Hubert. He just dropped the tail end of that car, put it sideways, and it's cost him so much. Everybody's starting to spin off in that corner, so something not lekker out there in that corner. Peter van der Spey battling out there with a handing on that car as he tries to make his way back to the pits.
Now, that's a replay of all the drama we've had so far, and that not even halfway into lap number 1. But back to real time again. It is Johan Fourie, 0.6 of a second ahead there of Francois Hubert. That is in that second position. There's 2.7 seconds between the 2 of them, and Swais Hubert, that is there in that 3rd place. There's 1.1 seconds between Swais and Sandro Bakari. That is there in a P4 as he picks up the dirt and almost puts it into the barrier. Just clipped the curb there and almost put himself away.
Definitely a nominee for Save of the Day there, keeping it out of trouble and actually managing to keep it going in a somewhat of a something that resembles a kind of a racing line there for Willem Botha.
Right, Hammer Lazarus is there in that 7th position, and he has got a Peter Hubert 5/10 of a second behind him. That's a recovering Peter Hubert that's there in that 8th position, and he's crowding the back end there of the Lazarus Honda, with Francois Hubert being the quickest man out there with a 126.976. Atinagel is behind Peter Hubert in that 9th position, and he is 2 seconds. He's Nagel behind Hubert, and Hubert has a lunge up on the inside, going into Tarzan corner, and makes the move stick there on Herman Lazarus.
I think Peter Hubert is the man who feels like kicking himself the most at this stage of the fight. He did everything right in practice. He did everything right in qualifying, and he was just a little bit too over-eager on the accelerator coming out of that corner and put the car sideways, and that's cost him around about, at this stage of the fight, about 6 positions as he's dropped all the way down, and he's got to put in all the effort and work now to work his way past cars again.
Yeah, Atinagel is 1.3 seconds behind the combination of Peter Hubert and Herman Lazarus. Make that 1.2, so Atinagel sitting up in P9 for iRacing SA. He is trying hard to catch the 2 of them ahead of him. Colin Plitt is 4 seconds behind Atinagel, and he is the last man there in that KTM sponsored vehicle that is there in the top 10.
Yeah, then Ian Riddle sits there in the 11th position in the Audi colour scheme, making his way around Zandfoort. Right behind him, we've got Raymond Duggan, who's about 1 second behind him. And it's the gap is closing as Raymond Duggan is starting to work his way back up the field as well. Timothy Stanton finds himself there in that 13th position. He's 7 seconds down the road from Duggan, with Graham Stephen and Jakustein keeping him company.
Yeah, pity for that. The smash up almost halfway in lap number 1. That's literally torn this race apart, because now there's massive gaps between everybody. But look at Francois Hubert in that 2nd position. A 10th of a second between himself and race leader Johan Fourie. And Johan has got competition and has called the Francois Hubert. Hubert is right on Fourie's case there as they make their way through that right-hander. And there's only a handful of battles out there. That's the one. And then there's one for P6 between the 2 Huberts, Rainier and Peter, and one in P11 between Ian Riddle and Raymond Duggan. Otherwise, the gaps are pretty big-ish between all the other drivers out there.
Well, Frankie, keep an eye out on Willem Botha. He actually holds the fastest lap at this stage of the fight. He's currently there in that 5th position as Peter Hubert makes a move there around the outside of Peter Hubert. He gets to the DHL car, past the Cheetos car. But Willem Botha is the man on the move there with the fastest lap time. And no, Lucchesi steals the fastest lap time from him now, down in 17th position. But Willem Botha is on the move. He's brought that time down to just 7/10 of a second between himself and Sandro Bakari.
Yeah, he will fancy a go at that 4th position. There's Atinagel in P9, and he has got Colin Plitt 4.9 seconds behind him as we go back to that fight for the lead. We go back to that fight out there for the lead between Johan Fourie and Francois Hubert. And if the 2 of them carry on like this, then Sway Hubert, there you see him coming into play. There is only 2.2 seconds behind Johan and Francois. And if they bog each other down, let's not be surprised if we see Sway Hubert join that fight between Johan and Francois.
Well, we are just past the halfway mark in this race, and there's a lot of action happening around the circuit now with that fight for 1st and 2nd between Fourie and Hubert. There you got the battle between Sandro Bakari and Willem Botha. Let's have a look here what Colin Plitt did in the KTM car. Got it onto that paint strip, just got off that curb and planted it too hard, and that put the 75 KTM car sideways.
Yeah, lucky he didn't crash into anything, but there's a lovely fight going on out there a bit further down between Lazarus and Nagel as we go back to that fight out there for P1. And here comes Sway Hubert. That 2.2 seconds has now gone to 2 seconds behind Johan Fourie and Francois Hubert. There the 2 leaders go through, down out of Ariel Lyndike corner, working their way down the main straight. Here comes a man in P3 in the 22 car, Sway Hubert, and he's getting ever closer and closer to Johan and Francois.
Sandro Bakari's got his hands full because Willem Botha's right there behind him. Those 2 cars tucked in right behind each other. You actually saw Willem Botha try to duck out to try and make a move, but realizing he's not close enough He's going to have to wait for another opportunity there as he's brought that time down to about 0.4 of a second behind Bakari. Then they're about 5 seconds ahead of Peter Yubert. Here goes Willem Botha. Bakari made a mistake. He got the tail end wagging, and that's left the door open for Willem Botha.
That car was fishtailing heavily there, and that cost him a position as Bakari has to give that 4th place up to Willem Botha. He's now 3/10 of a second behind Willem Botha. Let's have a look and see. Will he settle down and come back as Graham Stephen posts the quickest time out there of a 1:26.770.
For a country that's predominantly flat and below sea level, there's quite a lot of elevation changes on this circuit. If you look at the way these guys drive around Zandfoort here, as we see Sandra Bakari now starting to lose the back end there of Willem Botha, starting to just drop away a little bit more and more as Willem Botha has found the rhythm in this car. I've said this before in the season. Willem Botha, if he's got luck on his side, there's very few that can match his lap times.
Yeah, I agree with that one, but let's have a look at Nagel. He's all over the back of Herman Lazarus. Nagel crowding the back end there of Lazarus as they make their way through. Nagel working as hard as he can in that 12th car, sitting out there in that 9th position as he works his way down the main straight. And now Peter Hubert is the quickest driver out there with a 1:26.555.
Just shows you, Frankie, how much this field has improved for these drivers to be jostling for the fastest lap time. As you see, François Hubert all over the back end there of Johan Fourie. I mean, I'm starting to think François Hubert's Mexican because there's a tequila sponsorship on Johan Fourie's car, and François Hubert looks quite thirsty.
Yeah, he looks very thirsty. He's hungry. As we saw a car off the circuit there on the left-hand side, we'll try and pick up exactly who that is. That's Eugene Manouk in the 52 car that just kept on going straight, and everybody else went into the right-hander. But I'll tell you this for nothing, François Hubert has not given up on Johan Fourie. Coming out that very tricky little right corner. They work their way now through Ariel Lyndyke turn. That's the leaders. We go back to this fight here between Ian Riddle, that's in that 12th position, and he's got Timothy Stanton right in there behind him. There's 2/10 of a second between Riddle and Stanton for P12.
Stanton tried to go sit there on the outside of Riddle, tried to make a move. Riddle just covered him off there, but he looks like he's in trouble because Timothy Stanton looks like he's having a ball of a time, and he's got the speed to match it.
Right into that left-hander. That is very, very tricky. The corner coming up in front of them is that last corner. That is the Ariel Lyndyke corner. It's a double right-hander is that corner. That's the first part. There's the second part of Ariel Lyndyke corner. And then there's the main straight that will greet them as they work their way down into turn number 1 into Tarzan corner. And Stanton heading into turn 1 is 3/10 of a second behind Riddle.
Riddle tried to close off the line. He runs it a bit wide, leaves the door open there, but it looks like it worked for him as Stanton just can't get close enough to try and get his nose up on the inside. But Stanton is not letting Riddle get away from it going into turn number 3. They go around that corner, and you can see Timothy Stanton's desperately trying to get out from behind Riddle to make that passing maneuver. He looks like he's really enjoying these cars, and Riddle's going to have his hands full for the rest of the lap.
Yeah, lovely flowing rhythm there from Timothy Stanton as he's putting a lot of pressure there on Ian Riddle in that 12th position. Into the right hander they go. Watch the car in front. You'll notice if he climbs over those curbstones too much, there will be problems out there. The white flag has come out for the final lap for these two. Johan Fourie, François Hubert, a 10th of a second between first and second as we start the last lap.
We are on the last lap of 10-15 minutes in this race, and Johan Fourie is leading this one, but he's just managing to stay ahead there of François Hubert. Hubert looks super duper quick. He looks like he wants to apply the pressure. He's going to try and make a move there, and Fourie covers him off. This is going to be a lap-long battle for those top 2 positions.
Well, we've got to stay with this one because that is very, very close and exciting indeed. Johan Fourie, François Hubert. There's another fight a bit further on between Plitt and Duggan. There's 2/10 of a second there as we watch Stanton, Timothy Stanton, And Timothy Stanton's all over the back of Ian Riddle. And here comes Graham Stephen as well. And that is the fight for 12th position.
Two dogs battle for the bone, and the third one walks away with it is Graham Stephen. That's managed to get past there, but back to the front of this race. Johan Fourie ahead of Francois Hubert as they make their way into the final corner. Will Johan Fourie be able to fend off the attack there from Francois Hubert? They're right by each other, going through the last corner towards the main straight they go now, and it is going to be Johan Fourie that takes the checkered flag ahead of Francois Hubert in P2, 0.1 second ahead of Francois Hubert. Swayze Hubert brings it home in third, followed by Willem Botha and Sandra Bakari.
Sandra Bakari coming home in P5. Peter Hubert finishing there in that 6th position. It's a lonely P7 for Reinier Hubert as he finishes his race 2.1 seconds behind Atti Nagel. That ends then 8th position. And then Herman Lazarus crosses the line. Colin Plitt has got Raymond Duggan all over his case. Will Plitt get his nose ahead of him? No, he won't. It'll be... yes, he does. Plitt gets to the line ahead of Duggan, 200ths of a second between Colin Plitt and Raymond Duggan.
Now heading towards the line there is Graham Stephen, Ian Riddle. Graham Stephen finishes in 12th, followed by Ian Riddle in 13th. Timothy Stanton left to be happy there with 14th position after battling it out there with Riddle, but Graham Stephen catching them all off guard. Jaco Steyn will bring it home there in 15th, just ahead of Luke Lucchesi down in 16th. Robbie Teings will bring it home in 17th. He's about 10 seconds down the line with Peter van der Spey in 18th and the last runner on the lead lap.
Yeah, Peter van der Spey. Oh, man, you know what? If it wasn't for bad luck, he'll have no luck. That's for sure. Peter tries so hard, gives his best, and how many times this season must Peter find himself in the wrong place at the wrong time? So you've got to feel there for Peter van der Spey.
So there you have the official results from race number 1 for the Western Province Sports and GT Master Series. Johan Fourie brought it home in P1, Francois Hubert second, Swayze Hubert in third, with Willem Botha and Bakari rounding off your top 5.
Right, that is the top 5 as we get ready for the feature race. This will be a half an hour long. And remember, this is the way you ended race number 1. There's no pole invert for the first 6 or first 10 or first 12, whatever the case may be. The way you finish race number 1 is the way you start race number 2. And this is exactly what Johan Fourie and Francois Hubert will love, starting on the front row of the grid.
Right, so there we have second row, Swayze Hubert, Willem Botha, Sandra Bakari and Peter Hubert sits there on row number 3, with Reinier Hubert and Atti Nagel row number 4, and Herman Lazarus and Colin Plitt rounding off your top 5 rows.
Then Raymond Duggan and Graham Stephen, row 6, Riddle and Stanton, row 7, Steiner Lucchesi, row 8, Teings and Van der Spey, row 9, Spalmers and Engelbrecht, row 10, Manouk and Verrier in row 11.
Everybody on the grid, and the pace car will take them on another sighting lap there around the Zandfoort circuit in Holland. Well, actually the Netherlands. The Holland is just a province within the Netherlands.
Right, we're going to see this tremendous fight between Johan Fourie and Francois Hubert as well. Remember, this is a half an hour FC, so I'm wondering if a pit stop might not come into play in this one.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see what happens. We usually see a pit stop around about 24 to 25 minutes into the race when we do a full 45-minute race. So, do the guys have enough fuel to do a complete 30-minute race, or will we see some tactics here? Has somebody fueled light to try and maybe do a quick pit stop like a splash and dash without losing too much time? We'll have to wait and see.
Time will tell as the Porsche leads them around on the formation lap. Atti Nagel sitting all the way down in that mid-pack. There is Jan Spalmers in that 003 car, finds himself in 17th position. Does Jan Spalmers, and he will want to go a whole lot higher than that. Luke Lucchesi will say, listen here, I got a half an hour, I'm in P16, this is now I need to just calm it down and not get involved in any issues and try and bring that red machine of his through the field. The front couple of drivers won't want to make any problems and hassles out there for themselves. Francois Joubert and Johan Fourie and Willem Botha and obviously Suisse Joubert. They'll want to get through the first half a lap with no trouble. There's Timothy Stanton. On his outside, we see Robbie Teens, and behind Stanton is Luke Lucchesi, as FC the Porsche still leading them around Circuit Zandfoort.
Yeah, that looks like it is the final corner that they're making their way around. No, not yet. There we go. Halfway through the lap there, as the guys are on edge, ready to go and get this racing going here. Half an hour of all-out action in Sports and GT Master Series, event number 3 for season number 7. And you were mentioning earlier from 16th position, Luke Lucchesi would be able to try and work his magic. Earlier seasons, we would have seen somebody like Lucchesi or Fourie work their way through the pack, but by the time we get to season 7, the chances of you being able to do that easily has diminished quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of drivers have upped their game from race 1, season 1, which seems like a lifetime ago, as they go into that right-hander, then that left hairpin. That's a very tricky part here of Zandvoort circuit, going down that straight into the double right-hander. That's the final corner. That's the Arie Luijendijk corner, a man that used to race Formula 1 and also raced the Indy cars back in the day. Arie Luijendijk, as a matter of fact, Gary and myself a couple of years ago had the chance to meet Arie Luijendijk in the Killarney commentary box, and what a pleasant gentleman he is. But that was a good couple of years ago that we met Arie Luijendijk at Killarney International Raceway.
Just before this race gets started, Sandra Bakari is parked off in the pit lane. Not sure why, but this race is about to get started as we are about to go green. The Porsche pulls off, and here we go. Boogity, boogity, boogity. We go racing, and a brilliant start there by, where's our leaderboard gone to? That is...
That's Willem Botha.
That's Willem Botha that had a blinding start there. Made it past Peter Joubert and Johan Fourie and everybody that made it through there. And that is now Willem Botha that takes the lead of this race.
And I'll tell you what, the Francois Joubert has had a nightmare. It's dropped all the way down to P4. Somebody gets back in there. That could be Reinier Joubert. Well picked up there, FC quite right. There's Hammerlands just busy coming through there. He sits behind Nagel. But Willem Botha had a lovely, lovely start off the line. He couldn't have had a better start. Willem Botha goes from P4 to P1 as Johan Fourie sits in there behind him. And this is a replay of the 8 car that will be sent back in there. I think he might have done all to himself, as a matter of fact. He just lost the tail end. And Luke Lucchesi, once again, FC in a lot of trouble.
It's turning into a horrible race meeting here for Lucchesi as he dropped that car down. Eugene Manouk had a bit of an off there with the McLaren-coloured Honda HPD as well. Let's have a look here going into that corner. Oh, Mike Verrier is the one that lost it, and Manouk was actually very much not guilty in that one. Just had a car in front of him.
Yeah, I had a T-bone right in front of him and had nowhere to go. Johan Engelbrecht in the total car. The 99 car going into the right-hander, and the tail just steps out there on that 99 Honda HPD of Engelbrecht.
But we are back to the front of this race, and it is being led by Willem Botha at the front. Johan Fourie finds himself in that second position with a hard-charging Peter Joubert. Francois Joubert was the man who was caught very much unawares at the start of this race as he got bogged down by, I don't know by what or by who, but I mean, starting supposedly second in this race and then dropping all the way down to that fourth position, he could not be too happy with that.
Yeah, just caught napping on the line there because he's dropped down to P4, and the man that was in P4 was bumped himself all the way to the top of the leaderboard in P1, and that, of course, is Willem Botha. So, Francois Joubert just had to slow it down. Oh, Robbie Teens gets it all wrong. Did he lose it by himself, or was he tagged? But trouble out there for Teens in that 12th position.
Well, good job by our producer for jumping to Robbie Teens right as that happened. Let's have a look here what happened to Reinier Joubert. Trying to... Ooh, there's a lot of damage on that car. Is that Peter van der Spey? It looks like, yeah, Peter van der Spey as Rainier Hubert tries not to make contact there with Van der Spey, gets shot out towards the barriers again. Jan Spalmers had a bit of an off here, just getting that tail end to step out. Let's have a look at what happened here. Yeah, same thing. The tail end just steps out, and Raymond Duggan just losing it in front of him as well.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's not exactly what they wanted. However, let's have a look-see. Willem Botha is the quickest man out there into the right left-hander. He's done a 127.627 as Willem Botha, and he's getting away under Fourie. Fourie cannot keep up with Willem Botha. As a matter of fact, he's got Peter Hubert and Francois Hubert all over his back bumper there, all over his back wing, I should say. 7/10 of a second between Peter and Johan, and 4/10 of a second between Francois and Peter.
Now, look, you don't see somebody drive away from Johan Fourie like that. Is this now where strategy comes in? Is Johan Fourie, Peter Hubert, and Francois Hubert, and all the guys behind them holding back slightly to try and save fuel and maybe catching out the likes of Willem Botha? Ooh, massive contact there between Jan Spalmers and again Mike Verrier being caught up in that as well, as there's a lot of damage out there. But yeah, is Willem Botha being caught out with an unnecessary pit stop, allowing him to pull that far away of Johan Fourie? We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to really wait and see. We've only done 4 minutes in this half an hour stint. Graham Stephen is all over the back of Raymond Duggan there. Graham wants that, the 7th position. There's 2/10 of a second between Graham and Raymond as we ride aboard. That's the cockpit cam there of Graham Stephen, as Eugene Manukes on the right-hand side finds himself looking at the scenery. Graham Stephen down the main straight. Here he comes. Will he have a go at Duggan? Yes, he will. Up on the inside. They are side by side, the two of them. Duggan on the outside. And it is Graham Stephen that surely will take that position away there, and does so from Raymond Duggan.
Yeah, that's not a line that you can leave open ahead of a Graham Stephen. If that gap is allowed open, Graham Stephen will take it, and do not try and close it off when he's already past your front wheel, because he's not going to give it up. You've already allowed him to take that position, so well done there to a Graham Stephen. Raymond Duggan, better luck next time.
Well, the man that I'm now watching is Graham Stephen, as we have a look at all the different angles on the Hammer Lazarus car. Graham Stephen is closing up on Jaco Steyn. There's 2 seconds. It was 2.2. He is now closing up onto Jaco Steyn, as there's a lot of body damage there on the Herman Lazarus's Honda HPD.
Yeah, a lot of body damage out there, but we're riding on board there with Francois Hubert, who's now basically something went wrong for Willem Botha. He's dropped all the way down to 5th. And that's the whole field's gotten past him. Johan Fourie, Peter Hubert, Francois Hubert, all of them in there, as this race has just taken on another new phase at this stage of the fight.
Well, if that is picked up by the camera, which I think it has been, and onto the dirt on that embankment area there, and that's not exactly where Willem wanted to find himself, and that's the reason why it's gone from P1 all the way down to that 5th position.
Oh, man. Willem Botha, one of the fastest racers out there. He's always putting that car on the limit of what the cars can do, and more often than not, it comes and bites him in the back end, as we see a move there as Herman Lazarus tries to defend, but Colin Plitt says, I've got other plans.
Yeah, Colin Plitt moves up into that 9th position, but as I was saying earlier on FC, Graham Stephen from 2.2 seconds is now only 1.6 seconds behind Jaco Steyn. And I said earlier on, watch out there for Graham Stephen. He will fancy that the P6 of Jaco Steyn. Here comes Plitt, and here comes Lazarus through as we go to Graham Stephen, who's now only 1.1 seconds behind Jaco Steyn.
Graham Stephen definitely the man on the move, as we see another car going off there. That looks like it's Jan Spalmers that has left the circuit there once again, as Raymond Duggan works his way back into the pits in that chrome and a red-colored Honda HPD. Luke Lucchesi also having a horrid race out there, as he just misses the likes there of Jan Spalmers, and still keeps that Ferrari going.
That is Jan Spalmers. That is Jan. You'll see that car spin itself around. There's Lucchesi behind in this replay. Loses the tail end, and Lucchesi just misses the 003 car of Jan Spalmers.
Bomber's got that one all wrong there, not having a good time out there. But your race leader, Johan Fourie, is having a jaw out there in a P number 1. Just 0.3 of a second ahead there of Peter Hubert. Hubert seems to have found his rhythm again. He's got the DHL Honda HPD on rails at this stage of the fight as he sits there ahead of Francois Hubert.
Well, Jaco Stein's gone up 9 positions as Jaco, since this one got underway. Sandro Bakar has gone all the way down to P15. He's lost 10 positions in the 8 minutes so far in this one. So yeah, the biggest move at this point in time is the man that's there in P6, namely Jaco Stein, who's now dropped down to P7 because Graham Stephen has eventually made the move on him. Remember, he was 1.1 seconds behind him, and eventually it is, as you see on the replay, Graham Stephen that takes that 6th position away from Jaco Stein.
Graham Stephen, the mover and shaker in this race, worked his way through the pack there, up 6 positions already, started in 12th, now finds himself in P6, and now he looks like he's got his sights set there on Willem Botha. He's about 4.5 seconds there behind Botha, but Robbie Teams in the Dunkin' Donuts car looks like he's on the move as he's right there on the back end of Ian Riddle.
Lucchesi 126.484. He's the fastest man out there, all the way in that 18th position, as Riddle and Teams have in their own little fight out there for P16 and 17. Here comes Johan Engelbrecht. He is 4/10 of a second behind Timothy Stanton. That's in that 11th position. So Johan will fancy his chances. Somebody diving into pit lane there. And I just saw a car going to pit lane. Timothy Stanton making his way into pit. Is that Graham Stephen?
That's Manouk. It's Manouk.
Was that Eugene Manouk? Yeah, it's Manouk all the way in 21st. That's making his way into pit lane.
Mike Verrier, after the knocks and bumps that he's taken, he's out of this race completely. But this man is not out of the race. It is Johan Fourie that leads them as we see Timothy Stanton work his way back out onto the circuit.
Right, Timothy Stanton will rejoin all the way down in that 16th position as Renier Hubert in car number 8. That's a very quick pit stop. Is that not maybe a stop and go or something? I don't know, but he was in and out very quickly. But Fourier's got the Huberts for company, and they're not going to make life easy for him. That's for sure, because Peter and Francois, remember, Francois was the man that challenged him in heat number 1, and Francois sits now in that 3rd position, and it is Peter in that 2nd position that's now going to try and make life difficult for Fourie.
Yeah, well, Peter Hubert is the man looking for redemption after dominating the practice and qualifying, led the start of race number 1 and then ran wide and pitched that car sideways. That cost him one of the top positions out there, and he would like to very much redeem himself to try and dethrone one of the best drivers out there, Johan Fourie. He's right on his tail. There's almost contact between Johan Fourie and Peter Hubert. They were exceptional not to make contact there between Fourie and Peter Hubert.
Right, the cockpit cam there of Peter Hubert, and he's staring down at that rear wing of race leader Johan Fourie. Now remember, Johan, Peter and Francois, pretty soon they're going to come and put a lap there on the man that's in P17, namely Renier Hubert. They've got some distance to go before they catch up to him, but will that back marker come into play when they eventually get hold of Renier Hubert in car number 8?
Look, we've got, what is that, about 18.5 minutes left in this race, so they're definitely going to catch him as Robbie Teens dives into the pits for a Dunkin' with his donut.
With a Dunkin' with his donut. Willem Botha, on the other hand, he's going to come through. Botha wants to come through. Willem Botha and Atti Nagel, they are side by side. And Botha says, I'm going to hang on to you. Atti Nagel right in there behind him. Willem Botha is 4/10 of a second ahead of Nagel as they make their way out of that right-hander.
Willem Botha always giving himself so much work to do, always driving the car on the limit, and that costs him positions in the race, and that he has to work to get all those positions back. But Botha now already having worked his way back up into 4th position, and he's now 6.5 seconds behind Francois Hubert. Can he make that up before the end of the race? That would be interesting to see if he can do that.
Watch out for that man in P6. Graham Stephen, 2.5 seconds behind Atti Nagel. Graham Stephen wants that 5th position. This is a replay here at the 99 car of Johan Engelbrecht. going down the main straight into turn 1, into Tarzan corner. And that was an overtaking maneuver there by him, yes. So Francois Hubert sitting there in that third position. And Francois all over the back of Peter Hubert's car. 4/10 of a second between them. 7/10 of a second between Peter and the man that sits up front, Johan Fourie. Now, if Francois continues to hassle Peter like this, he will go into defensive mode, and that will allow Fourie to disappear down the road. However, Sway Hubert is all over the back, crowding the back end there of Jaco Stein's car for P7 and 8, and 3/10 of a second between Jaco and Swayze.
Yeah, Swayze Hubert right up against that back wing at one stage there as they make the way down the main straight now towards turn number 1. Across the start finish line they go to start another lap. Is Swayze Hubert. It's 3/10 of a second between them. Into turn number 1 they go. Swayze takes a slightly higher line, comes back down onto the apex, and he fancies himself to have the faster line as he tries to catch the back end there of Jaco Steyn.
Not much between the two of them, between Jaco Steyn and Swayze Hubert. As a matter of fact, P5. Watch out for Graham Stephen in P6. He's only 1.1 seconds now behind Attinagel. There's Graham Stephen. He's got missile locked there on Attinagel. It's a second. It's going to be under a second shortly between the two of them as Swayze Hubert and Jaco Steyn are still going one-on-one here with each other.
Yeah, Swayze Hubert has taken that position from Jaco Steyn. Jaco Steyn had no answer for the Alpine-sponsored Honda HPD there of Swayze Hubert as he now immediately starts trading off in that G-Drive Honda. But up ahead, it is Graham Stephen who's on the move. He's basically taken a second and a half out of Attinagel on just one lap. Graham Stephen, he's got one thing in mind, and that's to make it to the front of this field before the end of the race.
Put a lap there for on Ian Riddle, Dieter Graham Stephen. And the last lap for Atti was a 1:28.4 and a 1:27.3 for Graham Stephen. And there is now 4/10 of a second. Make that 3/10 of a second. Is going to close dramatically as they head down into turn 1, into Tarzan corner. And you wouldn't bet against Graham Stephen moving up into P5. But once he's there, he's got a bit of a mountain to climb to catch Willem Botha.
Well, it might look like a mountain to climb, but 3 laps back, he was 5 seconds behind Botha, who's made it past Attinagel. So anything can still happen in this race. 15 minutes left still in it. So anything can happen here. I predict Graham Stephen is going to catch Willem Botha and still possibly even start to catch the top 3 as well.
Here they go. They've got a couple of back markers ahead of them as they make their way through. They have got Manuk that just keeps right out the way, and he realizes there's no ways I'm going to keep these two guys up as Attinagel and Graham Stephen, 5/10 of a second between Atti and Graham. As a matter of fact, look at that fight for the lead. Peter Hubert and Francois Hubert are still crowding the back end there of the Johan Fourie Honda.
Yeah, Johan Fourie definitely not out of trouble yet, as Peter Hubert and Francois Hubert are not hassling each other too much. They know they've first got to catch Johan Fourie, so no point in taking each other out of P2 and 3 when they've still got Fourie to catch. Who's right. That's how close it is between the 3 of them. All can be covered with a single blanket.
Yeah, covering them with a blanket, that's for sure, with a handkerchief, as the late Brian Peake would have said. So there's nothing between Johan Fourie, Peter Hubert, and Francois Hubert at this point in time. And Attinagel is still being hassled there by Graham Stephen. Will go there now as we watch from Francois Hubert's car the fight going on ahead of him between Fourie and Peter Hubert.
We also got a battle there for 17th and 18th between Ian Riddle and Sparmers, but this is a tight battle up front here for the lead between Fourie, Hubert, and then you got the Nagel-Stephen battle going on for 5th and 6th. So I don't know where to look as everybody is so close to each other. Graham Stephen tries to get closer. There's right up on that back bumper underneath that back wing of Attinagel, but Attinagel making that Honda very, very wide.
Different lines here by Attinagel to try and keep Graham Stephen behind him. But remember, Graham Stephen, just like so many of them, is a seasoned Carter campaigner, and he's the brother of multiple South African champion Michael Stephen. And there's a lot of talent in Graham Stephen when it comes to real-time or sim rig racing. Into turn number 1 they go. Graham Stephen all over the back end there of Atinagel, 3/10 of a second. Atinagel, where do you look? Where do you look? What do you do? Just drive your line, put the blinkers on, and don't worry about the man behind you. The man behind you is going to have a go, though.
That's the battle between Sparmers and Ian Riddle, as Sparmers takes that one away there from Ian Riddle, but it's not over and done with yet. Sparmers goes for the outside line, runs it a bit wide, and Riddle and Sparmers not giving up on it yet as Sparmers retakes that position.
Now that's that fight for that 17th and 18th position. That's a fight that's way down the leaderboard. The real fight is for first, second, and third, and for fifth at this point in time. Colin Pritz done a personal best of a 128.816, and he sits there in P9, and he's nearly 14 seconds behind Jaco Steyn.
Graham Stevens still stuck there behind Atinagel. Nagel now getting slightly bit more of a breathing space there as Graham Stevens falls back slightly. Francois Hubert is getting closer to the back end there of Peter Hubert as Hubert gets there closer to the tail end of Johan Fourie. It's all so close between these guys. Nobody wants to make the initial move and cost themselves anything. But yeah, this is going to be a tight race towards the end as well.
If you have a look at those cars going into turn number 1 there, FC, there's Luke Lucchesi. On track, he sits out in 4th position. But when last have you said he's actually a lap behind?
He's a lap behind,
all the way
yeah.
down in P16.
Yeah, definitely not something we're used to saying. Yeah, this season has been extremely weird. Some of the hard hitters being hit with some very hard luck at this stage of the fight. But let's have a look here what's happening out on circuit. Graham Stevens still trying to get past Atinagel. It's about a 3/10 of a second battle as they get oh so close to each other. Graham Stevens has got the straight line speed. You can see he places that car in such a way that his acceleration out of the corner is so much faster than Nagel, but Nagel makes that car so wide.
There's a lovely fight for P11 between Peter van der Spy and Sander Bakari. As a matter of fact, there's 6/10 of a second between van der Spy and Bakari as you watch the one here with Graham Stevens. And that takes me back to last weekend when Peter van der Spy and Sander Bakari were just two of the drivers together with Davy Hubert and with the Doc that was racing out at Kalani International Raceway as van der Spy and Bakari still have their own little fight. Last weekend they were going one-on-one on the main circuit at Killarney, and now today they're going one-on-one in the sim ring.
Yeah, they're right by each other. It's come down to 3/10 of a second between the two of them. Bakari looks like he wants to make a move there on Peter van der Spy going into that right-hander, but van der Spy says you're going to have to work a lot harder to get past me as they battle it out here on lap number 15. 20 minutes done and dusted, almost 21 minutes done and dusted with 9 minutes left. Van der Spy runs wide. Here comes Bakari, going to get his nose up on the inside. They're side by side going towards the exit of the corner, but van der Spy just gets enough drive coming out of the corner.
Yeah, back to that fight there for P5. That's Atinagel and Graham Stevens. There's a spin on the top of your screen there. We'll have a look and see that is Jan Sparmers that spun the car around in that 003 car and losing the tail end there of that Honda of his. But when will Nagel succumb or will he not succumb? I'll tell you what, Atinagel's driven a fantastic race so far to keep Graham Stevens behind him. It's not that easy to keep Graham Stevens behind you, that's for sure. And Graham Stevens will not stop pressurizing Atinagel for that 5th position. 3/10 of a second between the two of them.
Yeah, we know how quick Atinagel can be on any given day and on any given circuit. And but we saw what Graham Stevens has done in this race already. He's driven like an absolute machine. So for Atinagel to hang on to that one, as we have a change at the front, Francois Hubert just got past Peter Hubert into that 2nd position. He's now going to take charge towards the front end of Fourie.
Well, they made contact there, and that's the reason why. And he was completely unsettled, was Peter. And Francois said, thank you very, very much. I'll just dive through. Now I must try and get rid of you so I can fight there with Johan Fourie once again.
Yeah, Renier Hubert was the unlucky chap in car number 8 there in the Cheetos coloured Honda that was just at the wrong place at the wrong time and just got tagged there by Peter Hubert. And Hubert's not going to like that one because now he's got to try and catch Francois Hubert again to try to before he can even try to regain the position on Johan Fourie.
Well, Peter van der Spey and Sandro Bakar is still going one-on-one, and van der Spey is not getting away from Bakar. Oh, and he puts the wheels on the dirt as I so speak, and that cost Peter van der Spey dearly as he slams into the Omco barrier.
Van der Spey will be kicking himself for that one. He had Sandro Bakari covered off. That allows Timothy Stanton to make his way past as well. Just got it wrong coming through that corner, got the wheel onto the dirt right about there, and that's put the car into an uncontrolled slide into the barrier, and yeah, that's basically going to cost him very, very dearly.
So Sandro Bakar all the way up into that 11th position. He's 11 seconds ahead of Stanton and 5 seconds ahead of Engelbrecht. That's in P10. So he's in no man's land there at this point in time. But Johan Fourie, he's got a 5.2 second lead there over Peter Hubert in that second position, who's taken that position back from Francois.
Something major happened because they weren't that far behind Johan Fourie, and now all of a sudden they're all 5 seconds behind. Let's have a look here what's he. Oh, that's what happened.
Oh,
Francois Hubert actually lost it, collected Peter Hubert, and they both dropped down there as Lucchesi and Renier Hubert unlapped themselves. That's given Johan Fourie all the breathing space in the world, and basically now leaves Peter Hubert and Francois Hubert in a 2-horse race for second and third.
Well, that's a very tricky right-hander which goes into the left-hander before they go into the outer line die corner. And that is not an easy piece of tarmac there for them. But Graham Stephen, 0.5 of a second behind Atti Nagel. And Graham was probably saying to himself, now, when am I going to be able to get my nose ahead of him? Well, I'll tell you this for nothing. Atti Nagel is a damn good race driver, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Graham Stephen.
We got Sandra Bakari into pit lane as well as Jan Spalmers. But Frankie, while you said Graham Stephen there on Atti Nagel, Francois Hubert's not going to be too happy because Willem Botha is just 0.7 of a second behind him.
Yeah, because of that situation, that's brought Willem Botha into play, and there is less than a second between the two of them. There they go down the main straight. Francois, while a 136.2, that's understandable. He was in trouble. And now he does a 127.6 and Willem a 127.3. So Willem Botha was quicker out there on the last lap between himself and Francois Hubert.
And then as we say that, Willem Botha goes and makes a mistake. Like I've said countless times before, Willem Botha, his own worst enemy. He had that in the bag. He just had to keep it going, and he would have caught Francois Hubert going down the long main straight into Tarzan corner. And Willem Botha decides to go doing some gardening along with Tarzan.
Yeah, so he and Tarzan's having a bit of fun out there in the garden. Jaco Steyn not having fun, bouncing over the grass, over the sand in the 88 car, and then does a lovely slider and gets that Honda back out on track once again. So the fight for P6 is on. Graham Stephen and Atti Nagel. As a matter of fact, they're right there with Willem Botha. Now it is a three-way fight for Botha's 4th position.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Stephen tries to go for that inside line, but he's covered off by Nagel, who smells blood in the water for Willem Botha as they make their way around a Zandfoort circuit here in the Netherlands. As Willem Botha made a mistake there, and that's opened the door as we see Manouk being passed there facing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's Eugene Manouk. And going into that right-hander and clipping the dirt and shoving that 52 car there into the tire barrier. Right. Graham Stephen is now... Graham is 8.8 seconds ahead of Sway Schubert. So there's no pressure on Graham Stephen from that perspective. But Willem Botha and Atti Nagel is being hassled heavily here by Graham Stephen.
Well, Frankie just choking on some of Eugene Manouk's smoke there out on circuit as they make their way around the circuit. Graham Stephen is right there on the back bumper of Nagel. Nagel right on the back bumper of Willem Botha. And yeah, this is going to be a heavily tight dash towards the end of this race as we are in the last 2.5 minutes of racing here in round number 3 of season 7 of Sports and GT Master Series.
A replay here of Timothy Stanton. Going into that right-hander, that's the in-car shot. Oh, that is that very technical part of the circuit there where Francois lost the tail end and Peter hit him. That's at the little complex just before you go into the final corner. So, Atinagel there in that fifth position, just behind Willem Botha and just ahead of Graham Stephen as the white flag comes out for the final lap.
Yeah, white flag is out. This is the last lap for your race leader. Riding on board with him, Johan Fourie, out there in the Patron Tequila black and green Honda HPD, as he's got 11 seconds. He can cruise to victory now out in P1. He didn't put a foot wrong this whole race. Almost had a bit of a foot wrong there with the guys as he got swallowed up there. Or is that Peter van der Spey? As Atinagel got clipped there by Willem Botha. And that's taken both Nagel and Graham Stephen out. But Stephen at least got past Nagel.
Yeah, I managed to slide it around and get on the track. Not the way I wanted to get past Atinagel. But, well, any way you can move up position. So, well done there. Good luck for Graham. Not that good for poor Ati. But, yes, it's been a dominating performance by Johan Fourie. He'll win this one with more than 13 seconds as Johan Fourie powers at Honda V's around Circuit Zandfoort for the final time. But it's not done and dusted yet as we head towards the end of the lap between Peter and Francois Hubert. Fourie should be making his way towards the checkered flag.
Yeah, Fourie and crosses the line there in the lead. But we see this battle going on here for second and third. Peter Hubert in the lead there. Will he be able to make it to the line before Francois Hubert? Up the main straight they go. Peter Hubert has done it. He finishes in second there ahead of Francois Hubert in third. And 5 seconds down the road will be Willem Botha in fourth.
Yeah, P5 will be Graham Stephen. He fought hard for that fifth position. Not the way he wanted it, but he'll take it any way he can. And he's 16 seconds ahead of Swiss Hubert. That finishes there in that sixth position. And he in turn is 4 seconds, nearly 5 seconds ahead of Atinagel. That finishes in P7 with Jaco Steyn. No, it shows that Steyn just pipped Nagel at the checkered flag.
Yeah, right on the line there, you can see the damage on a Nagel's car. That's a very chrome Honda HPD that finishes there in that 8th position ahead of Colin Plitt. Then 10th across the line will be Johan Engelbrecht in the 99 car, the Total Energies car there. He'll bring it home in 10th position. And next up, 17 seconds down the road, will be Herman Lazarus.
And behind him is Timothy Stanton. 1.4 seconds behind Lazarus is Stanton. And Timothy is the final driver on the lead lap. Lazarus and Stanton crossing the line now. And the first man to go one lap down is Sandro Bakari.
All right, this is what's happened there on the line. You can see that chrome Honda of Atti's just had no control over it, left the door wide open for Jaco Steyn to make it to the line ahead of him. What a sad way for Nagel to finish this race. He put up one of his best drives to hold off the attack of a charging Graham Stephen, and it all just went to naught from him from there.
Right, Heat 2 of the feature race. Same driver, Johan Fourie, finishing in P1. Peter Hubert second, except this time the man that finished second in race 1, Francois Hubert, finishes this one in that third position.
Willem Botha has managed to work his way up into that fourth position after starting in fourth, moving up into first, then making a mistake and dropping down, but finishing in fourth position altogether. Graham Stephen, brilliant drive to get it up into fifth position. Swiss Hubert in sixth. Jaco Steyn, a brilliant drive there on the end, getting past Atinagel in 8th, Colin Plitt in 9th, and Johan Engelbrecht rounding off your top 10.
Herman Lazarus and Timothy Stanton in P11 and 12, and they are the only 12 drivers that were out there on the lead lap. A lap down or more is Sandro Bakari, Luc Lequesi, Peter van der Spey, Reinier Hubert, Ian Riddle, and Raymond Duggan. So just a recap for the results of Heat 1. Remember, we only got as far as about the first 5 before they were gridding for the feature race. And that shows Johan Fourie, Francois Hubert, and Swiss Hubert. So the Huberts was all over Johan Fourie In race 1, it was Francois and Sways. In race 2, it was Peter and Francois.
Well, folks, that wraps up round number 3 of the Western Province Sports and GT Masters Series that came to you this evening from Zandfoort in the Honda HPD's brilliant event out here, and we look forward to next weekend's one. Frankie, a driver of the day from your side?
Oh dear, I would go for
That's not an easy question.
I would go for fighting spirit. I would go with Graham Stephen.
For the exact same reason, I would say Ati Nachel for fending off Graham Stephen for as long as he has.
For the exact same reason, I'd say Francois Joubert.
Well, okay, so guess what? All 3 of them are our drivers of the day.
Nominees for driver of the day. Bad luck.
Oh, where do we start?
Oh, geez, lots.
So we all, Peter van der Spey
Lots.
got knocked off. Luke Lucchese took
Lucchese.
himself out. Timothy Stainton got taken out as well. Jan Elbrecht didn't have a great day either. Finds himself in the top 10 in the feature race, but not where he would like to be. And for the first time in a long time, Raymond Duggan not being up in the top half of the field.
Mike Verrier, another one that just couldn't stay out of trouble.
Yeah, Willem Botha had a brilliant start, worked himself up into the lead of the race, then just got it all wrong, dropped back down, had to fight his way back. So, 2 different questions, 3 different answers for each one of them. So, it just shows you how competitive and how great this field is becoming out here, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Just referring to that incident of Willem Botha, there in fact is a replay of it, and that was the one that cost him a fair amount of time. That was just one of the incidents that actually did happen for him. Frankie, a closing word from your side and a thought for Sunday, Phil, on International Raceway.
I was going to say 2 things. From an iRacing point of view, can't wait for next week, Wednesday. And then the big one this weekend is the Killarney Motor Show from 10 o'clock the morning round all the way to about 5 o'clock the afternoon. And we are expecting record numbers of people in and out the gates this coming Sunday at Killarney International Raceway.
Yeah, I unfortunately will be missing that one. I'm going to be heading out to the Bredasdorp side of the world for some oval track racing out at Cape Agulhas Raceway. But you guys must enjoy it. But yeah, definitely looking forward to next week for a Sports and GT Master Series next Wednesday.
And Gaz, if my facts are right, we're supposed to be doing the prize giving for the, I think it's the Porsche Cup and the GTE.
GTE
Yes.
first, second, and third.
That's supposed to happen on Sunday as well, part of the motor show.
Byron Mitchell from Lucchese and Umpi Swart, if I remember correct. 30,000, 20,000, and 10,000. That season 1 in 2022, starting with the MSA GTE series. That will be replaced halfway through January with the next round of MSA GT3 as it goes worldwide, a very, very popular class. There will also be Porsche Cup. There's also going to be West Province Sports and GT Masters. There will also be 6-hour Enduros and a return to touring cars as well. From my side, Gary Fleming, on behalf of Second Gear Productions, the voice of West Province Motorsport, Frankie Yearness, man from Rage Productions, FC Niva. Thanks for joining us, and good night to you, one and all.